Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. I'm Callie, and today we will be going over all the books that I have read in the past month. I have read 12 books since we've last chatted, so I'm going to dive into it so that this video isn't 400 years long. So the first book that I read is Vengeful by V.E. Schwab, which is the second book in the Villain series. So this book I gave 5 stars. I thoroughly love V.E. Schwab's writing. She just creates these super characters with such depth and a plot that just is such a page turner that I could not put this book down. It was so exciting. I thought that the excitement would kind of dwindle off from the first book, but no, we were introduced to such new, diverse characters in this one who had just as cool powers. The whole powers aspect and how people acquire them was so cool and flushed out really well. And I love Victor and Eli and Sid and just all of these characters. And even that, I thought that this was a duology. And when it ended, I'm like, sir, where's the rest of the book? I need more answers. And lo and behold, I look it up and there's a third one supposed to come out. So maybe I'll get my answers. But even then, it still ended on kind of not quite a cliffhanger, but I need answers. So after Vengeful, I actually read 5 other books, excluding these ones, which I did for the reading rush. So I did all of those 5 book reviews in a different video, which I will link down below, and that is my reading rush wrap up. So I will talk about those 5 books that I read after Vengeful in that video. So right after the reading rush, I read A Study in Charlotte by Brittany Cavallaro. I started this during the reading rush. This was going to be my 6th or 7th book. I gave this a 3-star. I wasn't wholly impressed by I don't know if I just don't click with the writing style or the characters. So A Study in Charlotte is the first book in a 4-book series that follows a modern day gender bend of Sherlock Holmes. So we follow Charlotte Holmes, who is a descendant of Sherlock Holmes, and Jaime Watson, who is a descendant of James Watson. So Charlotte is the only one that's gender bent, and we follow them at a boarding school where a student gets murdered, and both of them are being framed for this murder, and we follow them trying to figure out why they're being framed, who actually killed him, and they're also recreating original stories from Sherlock Holmes. So it was a very interesting, I thought it was an interesting environment that we were getting and a setting, but everything just kind of fell flat for me. I didn't care for Charlotte. Jaime was really whiny, so this is in Jaime's perspective, and I've always really liked Sherlock Holmes and Sherlock Holmes-esque stories, shows, stuff like that, but this one I didn't care about the characters. I didn't really connect with them well. It was an okay mystery. It was okay, so I'm kind of between a 2 and a 3. The reveal was kind of cool. I did guess who it was, though, pretty quickly. So after A Study in Charlotte, I read The Princess and the Fangirl by Ashley Poston. This is the second book spin-off series of Geekerella and part of the Once Upon a Con series. So this is a modern retelling of The Princess and the Pauper, and we follow some characters that we met in Geekerella who go to this con. We follow an actress who plays the big princess in this big franchise, and a girl that looks almost exactly like her. And when the script is leaked and the actress is being blamed for it, she asks her doppelganger to switch around so that she can go and figure out who stole the script and who is leaking it and framing her. I found this really fun. I gave it 4 stars. The amount of pop culture and fan culture that was represented in this was really cool. There was a lot of little Easter eggs that I greatly appreciated. And I just really liked these characters. I am really enjoying the Once Upon a Con universe a lot. They're very diverse cast, and just very interesting stories in different voices from different aspects of being in a fandom, which I thought was really cool and really accurate. As a part of several fandoms myself, quite accurate. However, I've never been to a convention, so that, I don't know how accurately is depicted, but I'd like to think that it was fairly accurate from what happened in the story. So next I read Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins. I read the first Hunger Games book, or I guess reread it for the reading rush. So I wanted to continue rereading the entire series, so naturally I picked up Catching Fire, which is book 2 of the Hunger Games series, which follows the aftermath almost immediately after the first book, after Katniss and Peeta have won the Hunger Games. I think Catching Fire is probably my favorite because we get a lot more character development and we get a lot more background of past games, of victors, of Haymitch. We get Haymitch's story in this one, which is really cool. And I think we get a lot more into why the capital is how it is, which I find really intriguing and interesting in a post-apocalyptic world. Because in a lot of these stories, it's just, that's how it is. That's just how it happened. In this, we get actual explanation and background as to how the capital got there and why the Hunger Games are so important, and the different quarter quells and all of the other victors, and how victors are actually treated post-Hunger Games, which I thought was really cool. It's nothing I have ever read, and even now still have not read anything like this at all. So I gave it 5 stars again, because I gave it 5 stars the first time I read it. So another book another series I am keeping up with after the reading rush is the Keeper of the Lost Cities series. So I read Exile, which is book 2 by Shannon Messenger. I gave this one a 3.5, which is the same rating that I gave the first one. It just feels really slow. At the end of this book, however, I feel like we've actually gotten into the story and into the overarching plot. I am continuing with this series. I find it just very nostalgic. I get a lot of the first time I read Harry Potter kind of feels from this series, because it is very similar. Sophie finds out that she lives in the human world and finds out that she's an elf and is taken out of her environment to go to elf school to learn how to control her telekinetic powers and other powers that she possesses. So this just sort of continues on her being in school. They find an alicorn, which I found was a unicorn and a Pegasus put into one animal. So that was cool. And I love the cast of characters in this book. This is similar to Harry Potter, there is a very wide, diverse cast. There are a few things that bother me, like Sophie continually gets in trouble because she isn't told the laws of this world, which I find very weird that no one's just sat her down and explained the laws of the world. But I think that there are a lot of really good adults in this book, which I haven't seen in a middle grade YA since Harry Potter, where there are good, helpful adults trying to not necessarily stop the children, but trying to aid them in any way that they can. So I find that really refreshing for a middle grade book. So next I read The Last of August by Brittany Cavallaro, which is the second book in the A Study in Charlotte series. I gave this one 3 stars. Similar to the first book, it just fell flat. I did really like August, who was introduced to the series, but the mystery, I didn't care. I didn't give a crap about what happened to these characters. I didn't feel like they developed at all. I really don't like Charlotte and Jaime as characters, and I understand that they're supposed to be flawed characters, but there's a difference between flawed and likable. I understand, Sherlock Holmes is never supposed to be the likable character, but I don't like Watson either, so I don't really care for either of them. And then the mystery in this one, the reveal was like 100 pages long. So I got bored and lost and didn't really fully understand why it was so imperative that they solve this mystery. It just felt really dumb at the end. So didn't really care for this one. Next, I finished out the Hunger Games series with Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins, and this one is definitely my least favorite of the series. I don't know if it's just because with the war going on, we only get like 50 pages of the actual war, which I get that this is in Katniss's perspective and they don't want Katniss going out into the war, but I felt like this would have been a great way this would have been a great book to introduce other perspectives. We could have gotten Haymitch or even Gale and gotten that more war. So the war felt so rushed, and I still really love this story. It still gives me so many feels, even 10 years after I've actually read it. It was a lot more of Katniss's inner struggle, which I totally get, and I really appreciate that that Suzanne Collins delved into that aspect, but I needed something else to fully appreciate the war efforts and everything that the victors had to go through, and all of the other people in District 13 had to go through to win this war. It fell a little flat on that aspect for me. So I gave this one 4.5 because I still really love the story. I still love Katniss, and I love the twists and turns that are introduced into this book. So next I picked up The Wicker King by K. Ancrum. This book follows two boy best friends, where one of them starts hallucinating and brings along his friend on this adventure that isn't actually real. So we follow the boy who isn't hallucinating's perspective on trying to help his friend discern what is real or not real. And even then, his friend doesn't... We follow August, who is Jack's best friend, who basically thinks that the best way to help Jack with his hallucinations is to just go along with it. And I found it to be really weird. It was an extremely emotionally intense book. And there were a lot of different twists and turns that I didn't quite expect towards the end of this book. But I did really like the unreliable narrator aspect. I've only read a few books from that perspective, and I've always really enjoyed it. So that aspect was really cool and different. I did only give it a 3.5 because, again, I liked August, but I felt like I needed more from Jack. And since Jack was hallucinating, and we never really got his perspective, I didn't really care about what happened to him. I really only cared about what happened to August. The plot was a little thin. I do understand that, like, the hallucinating and all of that, because you could see, like, it gets, like, darker and darker throughout the whole story, which I thought was really cool and really well done. I just felt like the plot could have been a little bit more... It could have been expanded upon a little bit. So next I read the third book in the Keeper of the Lost Cities series, Everblaze by Shannon Messenger. This book is where we actually start to get really into the plot of this series, I think. I am super pumped for the rest of this series. It's book 3. So it's very much Prisoner of Azkaban, where the plot is starting, like, we're going up and up into plot, which is one of the reasons the third Harry Potter book is one of my personal favorites. This book, there was so much that started to happen, and we got a lot more background and a lot more into what the bad guys are doing, and more into the Black Swan, more legality stuff, more powers, more people are introduced. It was just so cool, and I did kind of guess the big plot twist in this one, but I was just as shocked when it happened, and I was just like, I knew it, but I was still so much feeling. This series is getting really good. Each book has gotten better. I'm really excited to continue and see where this goes. I'm so pumped to see where Sophie and her friends end up. Next, I read book 3 of the Charlotte Holmes series. This one, I gave another 3 stars. It's just, this one was more about how messed up Charlotte and Jaime are, which I feel like was supposed to make me care more about them, and it did not succeed in that aspect. It still feels just so dragged out. These mysteries there with the deductions and everything like going on, it just feels so dragged out. I feel like halfway through the book we got the reveal, and the second half of the book was explaining the reveal. And it just... I did appreciate how we got more of Charlotte's point of view. I actually did like getting her point of view, opposed to just Jaime explaining, well, Charlotte deduced this and found out this and this and this. We actually got her thought process, which made me like her a little bit more. But otherwise, the series is still kind of falling flat for me. I will read the last book just because I like to finish out series, and I want to see how it does wrap up. But otherwise, I'm very unimpressed with this series. So, unfortunate. So next I read Sea Witch Rising by Sarah Henning. This is the sequel to Sea Witch, which is the origin tale of Ursula from The Little Mermaid. So naturally, I picked that one up last year right when it came out and was very excited to get this book. However, so I give this a 3.5 because I think the story was very cool. It was very different and inventive and not really any kind of mermaid-y story I've ever read, and I've read a few. However, do not go into this thinking it's a Little Mermaid retelling. That was a dirty lie. There's a mermaid who gives up her voice to go on land, and Ursula is part our main character Evie is part octopus. End of list of similarities. So in this one, we follow two perspectives. We follow Evie, who 50 years after the events of Sea Witch, and we follow Runa, whose twin sister is the Ariel, who's traded her voice to go and fall for a prince. Runa trades something else to try and save her sister from dying, because it follows the same magic as the original Little Mermaid tale, where if she doesn't get the true love's kiss, she turns into sea foam. So Runa is trying to save her sister from turning into sea foam and help her sister fall in love with the prince or die trying. There was a lot more than that story. I was a little deceived, but I still enjoyed the mermaids and the magic and how everything did end up fitting together. So I did expect Evie, our Ursula, to be our villain, and she's not. Even a little bit. Not even like, no, just no. So that was a little disappointing. I was hoping to get more of a villain story out of this and get that angst and anger that we see from the original Little Mermaid tale. I got none of that. I got really cool magic, really cool mermaids, really great sibling relationships. No Little Mermaid though. So I'm a little agitated that I was lied to. Other than that, really cool story. Just don't go into it thinking it's Ariel reimagined or Ursula reimagined. So lastly, I read Daughter of the Pirate King by Tricia Levenseller. I gave this a 4 stars. This book was so fun. So this is basically, it follows Alosa, who is the daughter of the Pirate King, as she is trying to play captive on this ship to find something. So she's on an enemy ship and trying to find something that they've hidden away. She is basically a non-alcoholic female Jack Sparrow, which was amazing. I loved Alosa. She was just so awesome. Her banter and dialogue was really cool. There's magic in this, which is amazing, and I did not anticipate, so that was a very welcome surprise. And I just love Alosa's, so we get this in Alosa's point of view, and her inner monologues and inner battles with everything and her thought process is phenomenal. This isn't a long book. It's very short, but I read this in one sitting because it was just so intriguing and so different. And I'm very glad I read this right after Sea Witch Rising, because I needed a more sea-worthy book after that setting, and this did not disappoint. So I'm very, very happy with this series, or this first book, and I'm very excited to finish it out with the second book. These are all of the books that I have read in the past month, minus 5, which, like I said, is down. My reviews for those are down below. Currently, I am reading Daughter of the Siren Queen, which is the sequel to Daughter of the Pirate King. I am so far very much enjoying this book. I love the fact that I just love Alosa. She's so she's just a spitfire, and I love her. very, very much. And we're introduced to a lot more characters in this one who are just as awesome and fun as Alosa. So very, very interested to see where the story is going to go here. So I hope you enjoyed. I know this one was a little bit long, but I did read 12 books. Feel free to like, comment what you've read in the past month. If you've read any of these books and have differing opinions, I am very welcome to other people's opinions. And click that subscribe button. We post videos every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And feel free to follow all of our Instagram and Goodreads handles, which are linked down below. And I will see you guys in our next one. Bye!